Hello and welcome to our Voices from Wonersh interview, indeed the first of this series. And we are very fortunate that today we're having a chat with Mgr Gerald Ewing, the Vice-Rector of St John's Seminary, Wonersh. So, Father Jerry, thank you very much for doing this. Now, of course, you yourself are a Wonersh man a couple of years ago. What does Wonersh mean to you?
Well, Stephen, thanks for asking me to do this interview. Wonersh is very close to my heart. It always has been, and it always will be. I arrived here in 1973, a very long time ago. And since I returned in September 2017, life has been very, very busy, but I've had plenty of time to look back and to see how some things haven't changed at all, other things are very, very different.
Thank you. So, as a matter of curiosity, what hasn't changed?
Well, the bricks that hold the building up, the roof has been changed, of course, over the years, but you just walk around and you think, some of the things that were here all those years ago, even the very door handles in some cases, the same ones that people have been using since 1891. The feel of the building hasn't changed at all. I know there are fewer students than there were in my day, but the feel of the building is still very much the same. And the purpose of the building, the reason why this building exists is obviously the same, to form priests for work in the diocese in England and Wales.
And of course, we serve very much southern England, and you yourself come from the Archdiocese of Southwark.
I do.
And you served there for many years. Which parishes did you serve in, as a matter of curiosity?
When I was first ordained in 1981, I went to Abbeywood and Thamesmead, which was an ecumenical project. So my boss, in inverted commas, was a vicar. It involved United Reformed Church, Roman Catholic Church, Methodist Church and the Anglican Church, and we worked very much as a team ministry, and there were 14 in the team ministry. I was there for 4 years. After that I moved to Gravesend in Kent, very traditional parish where the parish priest had been there for 47 years, so my life was very different. I was there for 6 years. And then I moved to the sixth form college in Clapham, St Francis Xavier, and I was full-time chaplain there. I was there for 5 years. Then I moved very nearby to Wandsworth, and I was parish priest there for 15 years. At the same time then I became director of ongoing formation for the diocese, and I did that job also for 15 years. I had a sabbatical year in between leaving Wandsworth and going to Balham, and I immediately was in Balham before I came to Wonersh. I was there for 5 years, so that all adds up to more or less 37 years.
So obviously you've worked in a number of parishes which are challenging in different ways. For example, obviously the ecumenical project you mentioned in Thamesmead. Do you think ecumenism is something that is very important in the formation of priests? They should be encouraged to have an ecumenical outlook?
I think they most certainly should. I think though these days we look for solutions before we work through the difficulties. So we like quick fixes these days. We want to know how is it going to happen. And we've been working at this for a long time. I know there are various things that have happened in the Anglican Church particularly which can prevent a speedy union, shall we say. I always say do what you can to be friendly, to have good relations with local clergy, and leave the rest to the Holy Spirit. Now that might be a simplistic way of looking at things, but the theological things can be thrashed out by the various commissions, ARCIC, etc. You can basically just get on locally, and some people don't even know who their local vicar is, you see. Now, if you don't know who your local vicar is, then what hope have you got of any kind of relationship with them at all? So it's very often personalities first, and then theology, doctrine, all kinds of other things second.
And of course, as we say, that's one important thing in the formation of priests, which of course is our stock in trade here. What else would you say is very important for the formation of priests for the Church of the 21st century?
Well, we have our ratio that's just come out, and it lays out very clearly what's expected of formators, as we're called now. We weren't called formators in my day. We were basically just called the profs. And then the seminarians themselves, it's laid out very clearly what's expected of them. But basically, a desire to be a priest, an acceptance that your desire to be a priest may not actually lead to priesthood. That you need to be open to the Spirit working in your life in formation. It may be that you decide that God isn't calling you, or your formators decide God isn't calling you at this particular time, and maybe never. So a complete openness and an honesty about who you are, an honesty in all the areas that are related to formation: human, spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral. We are encouraged to be ourselves these days, much more than we ever were. And people very often these days wear their hearts on their sleeves. They talk about all kinds of things that we wouldn't have talked about in my generation at all. We didn't discuss feelings very often, for example. And these days you're encouraged to talk about who you are, what makes you tick. Because before anything else, we're human before we're priest, hopefully anyway. And those things are very important. So to integrate those four aspects of formation is, I think, what is really necessary in the formation of priests today. An integration of those, not one taking precedence over the other.
Yes, indeed. We often talk, of course, of the four pillars of formation, don't we? I think that term comes from the previous document of Pope St. John Paul, Pastoris Darbo Vobis. And there's a lot of emphasis on all four and this word integrated. Can we thrash out the word integrated a little for anyone who might think integrated was a form of transport policy?
Well, I would say it's more in fleshing it out to say, for example, you could be a brilliant scholar, but you can't relate to people. You've got no conversational skills. You're brilliant pastorally, but you've got no theological background. You need to have all those things coming together for your own sake, for the sake of the parish, for the sake of the church. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't have a particular strength in one. And very often that is the case, that you get very pastoral priests who wouldn't be necessarily rushing to give talks and things like that. You get very academic priests who wouldn't necessarily be rushing to do all kinds of pastoral things, but they're capable of both, and so that's what it's all about, I think,
No, thank you very much. That's, I think, very good for anyone who might be listening who might be interested in looking into that more. Now, of course, the theme of this year's Evangelist magazine, which is about to come out at the time of recording, is Wonersh in 2030. So perhaps I should ask you, where do you think we might see Wonersh in a decade or more?
Well, the village will still be here. I believe the seminary will still be here. I remember when I arrived thinking that the number of students that are here now, which is basically just under 30, when I left here, the student number was just under 60. So over the course of 30 plus years, the numbers have just halved. And when we consider the way the world has gone, the way the church has gone, I don't think that's bad these days, especially as people aren't committing themselves in all walks of life to things long term. They want to do things for a short period of time, then move on to something else. So I can see Wonersh I can see St John's Seminary here in 2030, possibly working more closely with the other seminaries, possibly with a different kind of life as far as other people being in the building are concerned, but still very much here and still serving the church in this part of the world and producing priests for the future.
That's excellent. Well, Father Joey, thank you very much for doing our interview today. And indeed, let's hope that Wonersh and the spirit of Wonersh continues for as long as long, shall we say. Thank you very much indeed, Father.
Thank you, Stephen.